Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Earhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, so today we have Christopher, and he's going to share a lot of info with us and help a lot of people. So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Christopher Scott Wyatt. I am an autistic individual, also with ADHD and some physical disabilities. I am a researcher, an educator, and a parent, and I consider the parent the most important part. So being a husband and father is the big part of my life. I research and I write about disability, neurodiversity, and online education, in particular, online spaces, and how technology has a lot of promise for those of us with differences, but at the same time, not all of those promises are realized. So I advocate for better technology, especially within education.
Awesome. I like that. You know, when it comes to technology, what are some of the things that you're focused on?
For me, I have a palsy and my right arm is partially paralyzed. So sort of work with one arm most of the time.
Yep.
And what I have found for myself, especially during times when the palsy is acting up or my body in general doesn't want to cooperate with me, I use a lot of text to speech. And when I am able, I'll also use a lot of dictation. So even well before today's AI boom, I was using Dragon, Naturally Speaking, and tools like that to help me with my work. And I'm a big believer that as we look at technologies like that, we're able to include more people in our classrooms and then more people in the workplace. So I'm a big believer in technology opening doors.
I agree with that. And, you know, I have cerebral palsy, so I definitely know what you're talking about. I use talk to text every day. You know, it's the quickest and easiest. You know, my hands, they don't work very good, so I gotta find other solutions. And I also use AI a lot. You know, it's a nice little resource for me to be able to write a lot quickly, and then I just go through it and I change it and make it my own.
I've been really impressed with the progress made with things like eye control. This summer, I was at a conference, and one of the presenters was using eye control to communicate with the audience and take
Really?
questions. Um, because that technology allows her to communicate, even though vocalization is difficult as her disability has progressed. That eye control with a virtual tablet where you look at the letter for 1 second and then it types the letter, or you can do it by word. And so common words pop up with autocomplete. Artificial intelligence has made that auto completion so much faster that she's able to write at a much faster speed with higher accuracy. So those are the things that I look at as an educator. And then even for myself and my children, my youngest has a real challenge writing by hand, but typing, she does very well. She's neurodiverse. She struggles with language. She was late to speak, but give her a keyboard and she can go. And so for me, technology is opening a path for her to participate in the classroom.
Yep. Yeah, you know, technology has opened a path for a lot of us, you know, especially like you're saying, you know, people that have special needs. I prefer to say special abilities because I know that we all have our own unique abilities. And it's really opening a lot of doors. You know, I know a lot of people that are using technology to communicate because they're unable to talk, you know, things like that. So it's just really remarkable.
And a lot of invisible disabilities, a lot of the disabilities people don't think about, like social anxiety, even agoraphobia, those things that might limit the ability to interact with an outside world. And it can be as simple as a speech impediment. online, whether it's on Reddit or in the old days in AOL chat rooms or whatever, these spaces allow us to interact with the larger world. And for a lot of us, I grew up in a rural community with only 1,400 people until I was in middle school, and then we moved. But growing up out in the country, you don't have a lot of people like yourself who might have disabilities or challenges. So the online world became a place where we could participate and have a voice and find others who had similar challenges or had adapted in ways that we needed to learn from. So I learn a lot from online communities, even to this day, whether it's Reddit or Facebook or LinkedIn. There are a lot of advocates for disabilities out there pointing to technologies and treatments that I hadn't considered and ways to help my children. So this is the value of technology, but let's be honest, not everyone can afford um, a touch tablet like a Dana. Not everyone can afford the technology of eye control, right? Visual control panels are expensive. For all the promise, one of the things we run into is insurance companies don't always want to cover the cost of the adaptive wheelchair with the breath control. They don't always want to cover these things. It's hard to convince schools that your child using a laptop in the classroom isn't cheating, that
Mm-hmm.
your student is just trying to type because
I
he or
went
she.
through that a lot.
You did.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they thought you were using technology unfairly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, because like for me, I I don't write very good. Mainly, it's really slow. I
Uh-huh.
can write just very slow. So for me, just like your daughter, it's a lot easier and faster if I type. So, in school, I either had a laptop or I had an aide. But then, like, I, the one thing that stands out for me a lot is when I went through driver's ed, I brought a laptop. I was the only one, just so I could type everything and do all the homework and all of that. And, it was definitely a thing where I had to prove that I wasn't cheating on anything. So yeah, things like that are annoying, but it's important, especially as parents, if your child is going through something like that, it's important for you to stand up for them because we all need a way to go through life as easy as we can. Because like for me, my life is a challenge. Let's not make it any harder.
What I find is that um, even as I've gotten older, people question the supports that I receive. I go to physical therapy. I don't know about you, but most of my friends
I
who are,
used to.
I have a very dear friend who goes to aquatic therapy because it helps him move and prevents the limbs from atrophying. I go to physical therapy 2 to 3 times a week for my issues with my right side. And you'll have people say, well, you need to be at work 8 to 5. You can't be going to physical therapy. That's not fair. And it's not like I'm not going to work from home and make up the time. Um, at home, even today after lunch, my daughters and I will, go into our little space, get out the mats, and they'll do their yoga and their stretching. But people say, oh, well, that's not fair that you take that time out. Well, if I don't take that time to exercise my arm will atrophy more and more quickly. Um, I've already lost nerve function. I don't feel pain the way I should, so I burn myself often. Um, but asking for physical therapy should be a very simple thing for an employer to say, okay, 3 days a week, we'll set aside 90 minutes where you're going to go to physical therapy and then come back. you know but employers, not every employer is as flexible, and not every school is as flexible as they need to be. And I think that's what podcasts like what you do and what I do and what so many others are doing is we're trying to teach people that accommodating our adaptations lets us contribute and lets us be valuable.
Exactly.
We have knowledge, we have skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm very thankful for all the employers I've had. They're always, like, you just tell us what you can and can't do, and we'll work around it because, they know that my skills, they're gonna oversee anything that I can't do. Like, my skills are more important than the things that, I have a hard time with. So I've been very fortunate that way. And like you're saying, if your employer allows you to take time off for physical therapy, well, guess what? You're going to be able to do more at work in the long run, because if you didn't do that, well, then, in your case, your arm is going to get worse, and then you're not going to be able to perform like you could.
Yeah, there was a time this year where I had to go have a spinal procedure,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you lose time. Trust me, you don't go to work the day after
No.
having epidural and then having someone shove a tube up your spine to do some work.
Yeah.
Um, so you need employers who understand by letting me deal with my pain and my needs, then I can be more productive. I can focus more on solving problems instead of the pain or the discomfort. Um, having having degenerative issues. Both of my daughters have degenerative myopia, so their vision is very rapidly declining. So they're both using an experimental treatment to keep their vision. That to me that doesn't mean that they won't be able to do things. It means that their vision will likely become a challenge. But right now we're paying for those treatments, their special contacts that help myopia, and we're paying very close attention to that. We need employers and schools that say it doesn't matter if someone can't see perfectly, hear perfectly, move perfectly, that there is something of value in that person, and that's what we need to focus on. Um,
Yeah.
one of the things I do, since I deal with the digital world, is I compare it to my teaching in Minnesota. I did my graduate work in Minnesota, and the buildings in which I worked all had ramps. And the University of Minnesota has a lot of underground tunnels. That was wonderful. I was using a cane. I could use it safely underground instead of going through snow. I could pull my cart because I can't really have a backpack easily. So I could pull my cart on wheels. And the truth is that ramps make life easier for everybody, because then everybody can use a ramp. Stairs can become a real barrier. Well, I look at technology that way. How can we make technology like that ramp that replaced the stairs? Ramps are wonderful. I wish every building preferred ramps and elevators. Well, what is the equivalent we can do with technology so everyone can participate and shine whatever their strength is?
Yeah. And I like that idea. What can we do with technology? What excites me the most about how technology is advancing and helping people who have, disabilities is there's going to be less of us that have to rely on a job, because it's getting easier and easier to have your own online business that you can do. Because, like for me, my whole business is online. I can do everything because I can pick and choose everything I do. So that's what I like to talk about on this podcast, is for those of you listening who have a special need of any kind, start thinking about how you could help people in the online space, because computers and technology is so cool because you can adapt it to you and your own needs.
And you can market it on so many different platforms now. You can be on YouTube, you can be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. You can get your message out there. And it doesn't matter what your skill is. If you're a computer programmer, you can certainly work from home. An artist can work from home. A writer can work from home. A lot of these jobs, we learned during the pandemic that a lot of things that we were told we couldn't do. My wife is an engineer, and those engineers did just fine working from home.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yep.
are a lot of things that employers need to stop demanding everyone be in the office 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and start recognizing that for a lot of us, we lose productivity. That time driving, for me, driving is extremely painful, and I'm not sure, that it's an issue coming up in life. Um, there will be a point where driving, I lose that time. Every employer knows that. We all come after the drive. Nobody's like eager to work. You all need to decompress after commuting wherever you are. The idea of letting employees work hybrid or work remotely, we proved during the pandemic we can do it. We can be productive. Not everyone cheats. No one's playing games. Not everyone's, playing solitaire or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us who do better in an environment we can control and we can adjust to our needs, set our desk, our height, use our microphone. These are important things, and employers are missing out if they insist strictly on a work in the office. If they only demand in-office appearance, they're going to lose some really great talent.
Yep. I agree.
And that talent will go off and be self-employed.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So it's important that if you can adapt to what somebody wants and needs, at least give it a try. It's not gonna hurt to try it. If it doesn't work, well, now you know.
I was in an employer that didn't work for me. It was an open office space, and I couldn't use headphones. For me, after an hour or so, become tiring.
Mm-hmm.
They just do. Having to block noise with noise canceling headphones, trying to work in a cubicle with lots of distraction. My autistic traits and my ADHD, working in a cubicle surrounded by people and noise and input was very difficult and sometimes physically painful. And employers should know that, well, but if I could go home and work in my office, in my space, I could do not only 8 hours of work, but 8 hours of better work, more, just more focused, better output, better results. So don't insist on me sitting in that cubicle in chaos. My oldest is her ADHD and her autism are the same as mine. She really needs that quiet space. So throwing her in a noisy classroom and expecting her to take a test at her best and she also has a back brace. So for spinal issues. And again, the schools need to recognize that giving her a few extra minutes before and after adaptive PE, a few extra minutes before, to get to the next class, we're not asking a lot. We're asking to let her do her best.
Yep. That's exactly what I did in school. I had extra time in between classes so I could get around. Yep.
And it doesn't cost the school anything, and it's not
No.
really an unfair advantage.
No.
It's just letting you succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. And like for me, I did use a power wheelchair in school. Well, the problem was the school elevator was so slow, you could never get to class on time. So I'm like, hey, it's not even my fault, I can move just as fast as anybody else because I'm in a powered chair. But when every class I have is on a different floor, well, I can't make it.
I was at a university and I opened the elevator because I was using a cane and it was very hard to go up and down stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And when the elevator opened, there were all of the janitorial supplies.
They use it as like a closet.
Yeah, the storage. Now, and their comment was, well, nobody had asked to use it. So, it's the accommodation was there, but it was inaccessible. They had made the accommodation impossible to use. And
I don't even think that's legal.
It was very quickly fixed. It was quickly rectified by the dean. And I have to say, had a wonderful dean at that university who took care of a broken ramp and the elevator and those things. But he was very focused on helping students and faculty succeed, not, well, gee, it's going to cost us a few extra dollars to move things or to fix this ramp or to, he saw the benefits of we're going to have better students, better graduates, happier alumni. So he saw the big picture. And that's what I hope everyone sees is the big picture of, when you're doing your podcast or you're doing your work, I hope that people judge it by the output, not, oh, well, he's getting to do it at home.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so, well, if you are thinking like that, like, hey, he gets to do it at home, that's not fair. I'm not doing anything you couldn't do, you know? So it's like, if you want to start a podcast, online business, you're probably scared. That's what holds us all back. People are scared. It's like, hey, give it a try. Just try it. And, for me, I talk a lot about, why you want something. If your why is big enough, you're going to do whatever it takes to get it done. So if you really want to start a business and help people, I say go for it.
We've been told, a lot of us, I really struggle in social situations, but I do well when I'm talking about what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
That's a standard trait of autism. I do really well on stage, but it took a lot to convince myself that I could lecture to students, that I could be on stage, or that I could do a podcast.
Yep.
Because growing up, when you have differences, when you have physical differences or cognitive differences, you are told often, maybe not in a mean way, but you are often told by teachers, oh, well, you should plan on what you can't do. You're not going to be able to do this. You need to think about doing this other thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so growing up, for that 12 years you're in school, or 13 years you're in K-12, right? Because kindergarten through 12. So that's 13 years of negativity.
Yep.
And that negativity, even if it's not from every teacher or every administrator, that negativity affects us. We internalize it. There's a whole lot of me, even now as a dad, I still, every day it's like, oh gosh, I failed today. I did something wrong, and all those teachers were right. All those people were right. I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest thing to overcome isn't the physical disability or the cognitive disability. It is the fear and the lack of confidence, that is the trauma. We have been traumatized throughout school that we're a failure
Yep.
and we're less. That's what's hard to overcome.
I think something that would, improve a lot of people's lives is once you graduate high school, go on like a 2 to 3 month self-development journey. Stop, slow down, and figure out who you actually are. Because as we grow up, our parents and teachers and everything like that, they kind of shape us into who we end up being. And a lot of times, that's not really who you are and who you want to be. I didn't figure out who I was until like 3 years ago. So I think it's really important. And another thing you talked about is, people saying that you can't do things and you should plan on, what you can't do. I hate looking at it like that. It's like, no, whenever somebody tells me I can't do something, or even, hey, say it to myself in my head, I'll look at something and go, oh, I can't do that. I immediately shift it to how can I every time, because then I can problem solve and somehow get it done.
I think how can I is so much better than why can't I?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because even if you say, why can't I do that? you're pausing and you're debating yourself as we're, how can I is a very powerful twist on that. If you sit there and say, why can't I, then you're going to start giving yourself all the list of why you can't before you think about the why you could.
Yep. Exactly.
How do I get there? How do I get there is so much better. Um, I struggle, obviously. I I think we all do, but yeah, I have friends who overcome what I often consider greater obstacles than I have, whether they're deaf or they're physically their mobility is more impaired than mine. And I always ask them, I said, well, how can you be so positive? You're all, many of them are university instructors or researchers. And, I have a deaf colleague who teaches public speaking and rhetoric.
Really? Wow.
And a lot of people will say, well, did he ever ponder why he couldn't? And no, it never crossed his mind that he couldn't. All he thought about was, okay, what tools do I need? How do I get there?
Yep.
And I think that's the key, is that mindset, not of, okay, I'm going to fail at this and all I'm doing is waiting for the failure. If all
Mm-hmm.
you're doing every day is waiting for the new failure, it's
That's
very
what you're gonna
difficult.
get.
Yeah. Life becomes very difficult.
Yep. Yep. And I like to look at failure as, or number one, you can't fail if you don't give up. So say you're doing a task and you quote unquote fail. Well, stop and look at why it failed and then try again and do it differently. I bet you'll succeed the next time.
It's a lot of it is accepting that failure, eh, for lack of a better word, failure is really all about learning. It's about learning, what did I do and how can I do it better next time? How can I anticipate the problems? But, like I said, even now, I still fall into the mind trap of hearing the people from my past who said I couldn't. And too often I anticipate the future failure. Um, I don't want my daughters to do that. And so I'm doing my best, but we really need to do better about telling everyone you can succeed. And instead of looking at a child and saying, how can we adapt the classroom for them? And what are their, let's do the IEP and the 504 plan, that individualized education. Instead of going through all of that as checklists, we should all just begin with one simple question. How can I help you succeed? That's it. How can I help you succeed? We don't need checklists. We don't need government mandate. What we need is a teacher or an employer who says, how can I help you? And then they have to listen.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Especially in school. Like, I feel like in school, sometimes they offer too much help. I know I dealt with that a lot. They wanted me to use special keyboards, special mouses, all that. I've always been the type where I don't want to use anything adaptive because it kind of holds you back. I love the adaptive technology. It's great for a lot of people, but for me, I'm very stubborn. So I like to do things as best as I can. Let's say everybody else. I don't know how else to word that. That way, I don't have to rely on something, And in school, I made that very clear. Like, I don't want anything special. I do use, let's say a laptop when normally you would just have a notebook, but that's okay,
I think the tendency to overhelp and overcompensate, part of that is fear. They don't want you to, they don't want to be blamed for something going wrong.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of it though a lot of it is well intentioned, but like
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather reach the point at some stage in their lives when my girls don't need as much medication to control their minds and their bodies. Um, I was on some medication for ADHD as a student, and now I don't use medication because what you do is you get old enough to find other ways to adapt without all of the assistance. But I think that's really important, is to start telling children, even, let's see what you can do without the assistance. Let's see what you can do without, and then if you need it, we'll work with it. But let's see what you
Exactly.
can do without the help.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe in that 100%, And it's like, I do use things that most people don't use, like, I'll show you. I got this holder from my phone because I use my phone with my nose most
Oh,
of the time. So for me, that's, my little adaptive tool that I use. So, but yeah, things like that, like, just make life a little bit easier, but not more, difficult because I have to have something. This episode of the Infinite Abilities podcast is brought to you by the one and only Infinite Toolbox, where just like all other toolboxes, we will get the job done, guaranteed. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to save time, boost revenue, or automate your processes, Infinite Toolbox has got you covered. With powerful tools designed to drive leads, expand your reach, and gain your industry secrets, we help you work smarter, not harder. Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Visit us at infinitetoolbox.com. That's infinitetoolbox.com, and discover how infinite your potential really is.
yeah, I think that, it's like I said with ramps, they help everyone, and a ramp is, yeah, it's an adaptation, it's an accommodation, but I think if it's done right, it helps everybody. So it's not really an unfair advantage in that sense. It's just
Mm-hmm.
helping everybody. I
Yeah.
I think computers, a lot of teachers and parents, I'm certainly one of those parents that, boy, I wish kids, learned to do cursive and calligraphy and all that, wonderful writing of the past. But the reality is, I did not learn to write in school with a fountain pen or a quill pen. We used pencils and pens. And today they're using keyboards. And is the keyboard an unfair advantage? It's what's available now.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, technology is a combination. A lot of technology accommodates our differences in ways that aren't always foreseen. For me, typing was a lifesaver. My right hand cramps up and then it's useless, and then I'm trying to write with my left hand, and then I'm trying to I give up because I'm in so much pain. Um, a keyboard, and like I said, text to speech or speech to text, those two tools have really helped a lot when when I struggle with my vision. I love to listen to a book. I'll listen to a book and read it at the same time because it helps me with comprehension, and it helps me, since my vision's not perfect. I think that those are things where teachers need to say, let's try it without the extra time on the test. And then if you need the extra time, if we discover you need it, we'll work with it. But let's see if you can do the test in the hour that everyone's getting. If not, you are legally entitled to extra time, but let's see what you can do without the extra support. And
Yeah.
and if the student can do it, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. Yeah. All right. So this has been really amazing, and I'm sure that the listeners want to know how they can find more about you.
Um, well, I am at the Autistic Me on Facebook and LinkedIn. There's also a Twitter/X account that's Autistic Me. And I do have, I have started, I'm going to try to get this right. It's called Linktree. I have never used it until recently. But what happened was a lot of people were asking for all of the links. And so I just did that. And let me see if I can pull that up. My apologies. So I just created this link tree literally this week. So let's see here. Sorry about that. It is Linktree. I guess it's linktr.ee, and then it's just CS Wyatt.
Okay.
Linktree,
Awesome.
CS Wyatt will get you all of the social media, all of the websites, the podcast links for Apple and Spotify. So I've decided that Linktree is probably the easiest way to give everything to everyone at once.
Yep, I agree. And then what is the name of your podcast?
Perspectives on Neurodiversity.
Awesome. Awesome. So for anybody listening, go check that out. And then I gotta ask you, so my slogan is your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
I really believe that even if I'm doing a podcast that I know reaches 10 people, those, which, we hope it reaches far more than 10 people, right?
Yeah.
But if it reaches 10 people, they're going to talk to other people. Your reach is infinite. It is not just every student in my classroom that I have helped, but it's then everyone that they took a lesson to, and then everyone those people took a lesson to. Your impact on the world is infinite. It is not just the people you talk to, but it's the people they talk to or write to or however they communicate. Your reach is infinite, and that's why we do what we do.
It is. I like that. That was really awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was really good and really helpful for a lot of people.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in the Nick Heart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.